Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer, and I'm podcasting from Ma'ale Adumim in Israel. We like to believe that we are rational people. Pretty much everyone wants to see themselves as acting according to reason and not following some crazy whim that just popped into their head. They may not feel this way about others, however. In fact, they very likely think that almost anybody else goes through fits of lunacy every once in a while, or even on a fairly regular basis. But each person in their own mind is the uniquely sane one in an otherwise insane world. When we look back in the past, we realize that it hasn't always been like this. Even in our own past, it is painfully easy to spot those many times when we did something that we now understand was perfectly crazy. Kids do weird things all the time. That's just the way they are. And we accept it. And up to a certain age, consider it to be cute or playful. We were all that way ourselves at one point, so it stands to reason that we probably acted that way. Not only that, but historically, it seems that human beings, even adults, did a heck of a lot of stupid things in their lives. Entire populations believed in the most inane superstitions. Ghosts were as real as potatoes, as were omens and divining rods and garlic to ward off vampires. The paths of the stars ruled the fate of all, and nobody, and I mean nobody, would dream of messing with fate. Speaking of dreams, they were as relevant to the waking world as the coming weather. If anything, they were a window into the future that was every bit as real as the present. When we read about those crazy things that people used to believe in, we breathe a collective sigh of relief that we live in an age of rationality where we can really rely on trustworthy machines to never get anything wrong. We have computers to do all the infallible thinking for us, so that we are no longer subject to the whims and failures of the human brain. We are up to date on everything, and we know all that we need to know at any given time. We have it all: the facts, the correct answers, the solid evidence, and the seemingly infinite wherewithal to get more. We are headed for perfection in our sanity. What if we lived back then in the past where they did not know a fraction of what we know? What would we do? They didn't even know why it rained, let alone what was happening anywhere but where they were at the present moment. They would have to believe in divine agency to explain anything. They would have to trust palm reading and fortune telling to know what was coming down the pipeline. They couldn't even accept the finality of death, needing to come up with notions of an afterlife to explain the ultimate mystery. A classic book like the Bible is loaded with this sort of stuff. There are dreams that foretell the future, angels darting in and out of people's lives, God telling everyone what to do and losing it when they don't, and all kinds of wacky ideas coming from every direction about birth and death and power and justice, to say nothing of slavery, ritual impurity, and animal offerings. With all this happening all the time, it amazes us that they could have made it through a single day, let alone the entire biblical period. This week's Parsha, for instance, has a whole collection of these. The Parsha is called Miketz, which means at the end. This strange phrase, like all Parsha titles, introduces the first key verse in the Parsha. In this case, it begins the sentence which reads, quote, "It was at the end of 2 years, and Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he was standing near the river." This dramatic opening, complete with the classic word behold, gets us right into the famous dreams that Pharaoh had one night, which nobody could interpret. They involved 7 healthy cows grazing in a marsh. Then 7 weak cows came from nowhere and eat the healthy cows. This ends the first dream. The second is more or less the same, but with stalks instead of cows. Again, the thin stalks swallow up the healthy ones, and the dream ends. When nobody could successfully interpret the dream, the royal cupbearer remembers his own dream experience while he was in jail with a Hebrew slave. The slave successfully interpreted both his and his cellmates' dreams, and their fates were set. This Hebrew slave, of course, was none other than Joseph, who had been sold to a caravan by his brothers over sibling rivalry, and then tossed in jail out of revenge by his former master's wife when he refused her sexual advances. Joseph is rushed out of jail to take a stab at these dreams. He accurately interprets them to mean that there will be 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine. The famine will be so intense that people will forget about how good they had it during the first 7 years. Joseph tells Pharaoh that the repetition of the dream means that it will all happen imminently. Not only that, but it advises Pharaoh to appoint a minister over the grains, to set up a storage and rationing system during the years of plenty, to keep the nation supplied with food during the years of famine. Pharaoh selects none other than Joseph to fill this task, deeming him wiser than all his other advisors. Thus, Joseph is raised from imprisoned slave to viceroy of the most powerful empire in the world in the blink of an eye. He even gets married to his former master's daughter and fathers 2 sons. When the years of famine are in full swing, Joseph's family back in Canaan are beginning to suffer its effects. Joseph tells his remaining sons, with the exception of the youngest, to go to Egypt, where he had heard there was grain to purchase. When they get there, Joseph recognizes them, but they don't recognize him. He puts them through all kinds of intrigue, accusing them of attempting to spy out the land for some evil purpose. They deny it, but there is nothing they can do or say to defend themselves, being as Joseph holds all the cards. He ultimately sends them back home with grain and with all their money, but holds one brother as hostage to guarantee their return, with the stipulation that they bring the youngest brother, Benjamin, who is Joseph's only full brother. When they tell all this to Jacob, he refuses to let Benjamin go back with them, claiming that he will die on the journey. Finally, when they again run out of food, he agrees to send Benjamin and sends them off with instructions to give all the extra money back and to give gifts to the person in charge. They return, and Joseph again shows his uncanny understanding of who they are, and again gives them plenty of food to return with, and again restores their money. In addition, he has his special goblet placed in the pack of Benjamin, an obvious setup. Sure enough, before they are long on their way, the guards catch up with them and accuse them of stealing the viceroy's personal goblet that he uses for divination. The goblet is found in the pack of Benjamin, and back they go to the royal house. So ends the Parsha. So we have in this Parsha a couple of dreams that somehow foretell the future to a degree of accuracy that would make a computer simulation look amateur. We have a foreign imprisoned slave rising to immense power and wisdom in an instant. We have a massive economic and social overhaul of the most powerful nation in the world at the advice of this former slave and based on these weird dreams. Not only that, but we have it all working to a degree of success that would surpass the best that any modern nation has ever put forth. To top it off, we have this whole scheme with the brothers that goes undetected and unsuspected until the end, where they are confronted with having stolen the viceroy's cup that he uses for divination. Are we supposed to believe that all this actually happened? If we heard about such a scenario today, we would laugh. If a modern ruler relied on dreams, he or she would instantly be deemed a genuine nut who should have nothing to do with authority and power. The story of a slave rising miraculously to power is inspiring, but it only happens in fairy tales and legends. Social overhauls like this never really work. They only make things worse and kill more people than if things had been left to fate. The only thing that sounds remotely reasonable is that political scheme that Joseph did to his brothers, but even that sounds a bit far-fetched. But how much of what we know to work according to rational plan today really follows that rational script? We are told economic theories about how things should work, but nobody really knows if those theories are driving the story or if somebody is working behind the scenes to manipulate the markets. We have all kinds of ideas about what is good for society, and more often than not, it all flies in our faces. We build machines to make our lives better, and they enslave us more than we can ever be aware. We structure our lives around sound choices, but in the end, we follow our whims and find that it works just as well. We find that everything we believed to be true was really a lie or some approximation of the truth. But we believe we are rational to discard such antiquated notions as spirituality and God, only to find that it leaves our lives empty of everything and we come running back. We disregard our dreams as nothing more than wisps of memory and fantasy, but crave to understand them nevertheless, fearing that we might be missing something essential in our fate. We even discard the whole notion of fate, but discover that our reliance on science has bound us more than ever in its chains. Perhaps these wild Bible stories were onto something when they relied on dreams and schemes and shots in the dark. Perhaps this is the way that everything works and always has. Perhaps we are the irrational ones in believing our rational means are the only way things could possibly work. Has it really worked? Has abandoning this irrational notion of a deity really helped us out? We now have nothing to live for and no hope for the future. Perhaps if we latched on to some of that irrational biblical stuff, we would find that it hits on something essential for human existence. It may not all work for us, but the basic ideas still fill that, quote, God-sized hole that takes up space in the human mind. Machines and math and medicine and smartphones are great, and we can no longer live without them. But the same goes for good old beliefs in an ultimate power, and it's supplying us with meaning and purpose in our lives. They may not be all that provable with some modern gadget, but they sure hit the spot when we need to feel like we matter. Shabbat Shalom.